Muse Music Store and Mahaska County Conservation Board presents Eveland Access Summerfest Music by the River 2024. June 1st from noon to 10 p.m. featuring 8 musical artists with live music, activities like bingo, sand volleyball, and cornhole, food, and much, much more. It's a free event at the Eveland Access Campgrounds at 2890 Galveston Avenue, Oskaloosa. Bring a friend and have a lot of fun at the Eveland Access Summerfest 2024 Music by the River, June 1st from noon to 10 at the Eveland Access Campgrounds. And welcome into Tuesday Night Tune-Up TNT. We are live from Smoky Row in downtown Oskaloosa on what has been a beautiful Tuesday. Of course, we're getting you tuned up for the racing week ahead. As you're seeing, both guys currently on their phones. They are searching for the top information that we can bring you on tonight's show. Curtis Vanderwall, you're stepping in as our main host tonight, as Safe Grafke is off playing somewhere in the mountains or something. What do you got for us tonight, Curtis?
Well, hopefully I don't lead us astray. We don't wander around aimlessly, anything. But I've got Trevor here by my side to somewhat co-host, somewhat be interviewed, and then hopefully keep everything on the rails with Steve, and then Trevor's family will help keep us in line as well. So, I'm not quite as excited. I'm not quite as zany as Safe. So I apologize if that's what you really get out of the Tuesday Night Tune-Up show. We're going to miss that a little bit tonight, but we'll maybe have a little bit more news and a little bit less juice, if you will, in Safe's absence. But I think the big thing is initially here, let's just kind of talk about some of the results we had last week out here at the Southern Iowa Speedway. Then it seems with quite a bit of weather in the early part of the week, it was surprising that we even got the show in, but we did get the show in. Depending on who you talk to, the track conditions went from really dry to when the sun went down, some of the moisture came back up, and then things got a little rough. So, but we had some pretty amazing results out at the Speedway last week, and the racing seemed to be very entertaining. So, the big thing that to me anyway, the headline is really the success that longtime racer in the Sport Mod division, Tony Johnson got his first career victory last week, and it's been a long time coming. I don't know exactly when Tony started, but I'm thinking it's somewhere around that 2007 or 2008 time frame, and he's been a pretty consistent competitor, and over the last few years has done a really good job of upgrading equipment and getting things done. And even though I was competing against him and for a few laps was trying to battle with him until we had our mechanical gremlins, and that dropped us back. But big congratulations to Tony winning his first ever feature event. Long time coming, and as he told me after the races, it's one of the best feelings in the world, and he was sure excited afterwards. So following him across the line, Colton Livesey from up in New Sharon ran second, then Kyle Harwood, Will Wolf, and then yours truly kind of rounded out the top five. So the other nice thing, keeping it in the family, Tony's son AJ won the non-wing sprint car, so that was a pretty good showing there as well. Mike Maryberry from Fremont ran second. The Colfax Comet Robert Bell was third. Doug Sylvester from Ottumwa and Tyler Graves non-wing sprints out here. Had the Sport Compacts. And we had Kyle Rosdom from Pulaski picking up the win. Matt Moore was chasing him. Then Seth Minders, Brandon Pinkney, and James Herring from here in Oski kind of rounded out the top 5 there. And then we kind of tail off now to the Dustin Griffiths show, because he won not only the hobby stocks in what I heard was a very good, very entertaining race. He beat Dustin Griffiths won. He beat Eric Stanton from Carlisle, Peyton Stevens from over in Bussy, and Keaton Gordon came in 4th, and then Kobe Saban from Des Moines rounded out the top 5. And then the stock cars, Dustin again, he won that one. Todd Reitzler from Grinnell was 2nd. Steve Byers had a good run in 3rd. Brett Mosdom from up in Sully was 4th, and Jason McDaniel nailed down the 5th spot. So pretty full night of racing out there. And you know, Trevor, it's one of those things that when we have that weather so close, you know, especially the week before, we couldn't get the races in because of the grounds were so wet, and then we got so much rain Sunday into Monday, and then on Tuesday again. Last week it was and I know you guys couldn't make it down last week, but it was pretty wild just to even fathom how the racetrack could even be in shape to race, and it was pretty entertaining night from what I hear. Unfortunately, in the pit area, you don't get a chance necessarily to watch everything.
You know, I talked to a lot of the guys that raced, and they were dead set on having a heavy track, and I kind of told them, I was like, yeah, you better watch out, because chances are they're probably not going to do much to it with all the moisture we had. And sure enough, it was throwing dust, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was throwing dust in hot laps, actually, and I was personally really concerned about that. And when Oski gets that way, it tends to be kind of hard on tires, as you're aware of with your experience in the hobbies and sport mods, and it just kind of stayed that way. And then I will be very honest, I was extremely surprised that they didn't hold up the show and kind of go try and correct that a little bit to make the racetrack a little bit racier.
Farm it a little bit, give you a couple lanes to run.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I think as a racer, that's really the thing that we're after, right? I don't personally care if it's, you know, wetter or drier or whatever, but as long as there's at least 2 lanes, you know.
I think as racers, we prefer to have 2 lanes.
Yeah, right? At least give me some other option. So
there's nothing worse than being on 1-lane track. And
you know, the sun, and it was sure headed that direction. And then the sun went down and the moisture came back up, and it was pretty racy for those first couple features, but then even pulling out for the feature in our class, the flagman was warning us that it was getting pretty rough, and to take a look at that. So again, you know, the track crew did the best that they could, right? They weren't dealt the best hand by any stretch, and that's always rough on them, right? Because if you cancel and you could have raced, well, then everybody's like, well, you shouldn't have canceled. And then if you race and the track isn't good, then everybody's like, see, I told you shouldn't have. So it's like a no-win situation there. So kudos to the whole crew at Oski for getting that track whipped into shape, and I know, you know, I've been friends with Ryan Humphrey since we were probably old enough to walk. You know, our dads were friends for 30, 40 years or whatever, and I know he takes a lot of pride in that, and he's taken some heat in the last couple of years where they've kept the track quite a bit wetter than most guys would like to see, but you know, he's been working to try and get that a little bit drier this year, and it's definitely been drier the couple times I've been out there.
I think they kind of kept it wetter to kind of benefit us a little bit over the past few years with the tire situation we had.
I think you're right. I think you're right in talking to him, and I think that he's taken some heat because of that, with competitors saying, hey, we want to have you know, a drier surface to race on, which most people would agree with. The downside is you can't have it be so dry that it's one lane and then crumbly everywhere else, and where that balance is, I certainly don't know. Otherwise I'd be doing it, but at the same time, it's kudos to them for even getting the show in, because a week ago right now, I would not have bet $1 that we were going to race Wednesday night. So, but with that, I think we'll sneak into our first break. We'll come back. We'll do some other results from around the state, and then we'll kind of get into a one-on-one deal. So we'll throw it back to Steve, let him do his stuff, and we'll be right back.
All righty. Thank you, Curtis. Let's take a look at some of our sponsors, which are making tonight possible. That includes Milo's Tree Service. We also thank Sinclair Napa. Find them at sinclairnapa.com. Over to Sigourney, we go to Sigourney Body Shop at 210 Clark Street. We also thank Sigourney Motors with CJ Sales and Service at Sigourney Motors, and Sigourney Tree Care. Zeb, I'm sure, has had a busy week here recently, as has Milo's. All the tree care places busy with all the storms here lately. American Family Insurance, Christy Tarr. You can get a hold of her at Team Tarr at amfam.com. And then we also thank James Family Greenhouse at 701 East Jackson Street in Sigourney. And again, James Family Greenhouse, one of our many sponsors that make our show possible. There you go. Take that down on the floor there, Curtis. And that all these fine folks make our broadcast possible for the Tuesday night tune-up TNT. It's Dynamite. Let's go back to Curtis and Trevor. Go ahead, Curtis.
Dynamite. I tell you, Steve brings the energy, and that's no doubt why he's been so successful over his career in the entertainment industry. So we kind of went over the local results. Seemed like the Friday night shows in the area got doused with rain, and we didn't get those in. I think 34 Raceway ran Saturday night, and from what it looks like down in Burlington, the Dustin the Dominator, maybe giving him a new nickname here, but he dominated Oski Wednesday night, and I think he went down there and won again Saturday night. The other big race in the state, though, was up in Spencer at the Clay County deal up there. They had some weather issues, and the purse got drawn back from what it was supposed to be, and there was depending on what you saw and what you read there was some things kind of being thrown around on the social media, but basically it ended up being around $16,600 to win sport mods and stock cars, and from the sounds of it, I didn't see any of the action, but I know we had a lot of people from the area in both of those classes, and the sport mod feature was pretty wild. You've got the winner ended up being Matt Luft from up there, many-time IMCA national champion. He and his family run a really good program up there, and he's really hard to beat up there. I know he's come down here to race with us a few times, and is a very, very tough competitor. Jake Sakow, I think is how you pronounce it, ran second. Braden Ehlers was third. Taylor Kuhl was fourth, and then our very own Brayton Carter from here in Oski rounded out the top five in that show. So very high-paying show, extremely large amount of entries in there. Who else local was on those results?
I was just scrolling through here, and any of these guys that we see on a regular night, Braden Carter, Cam Reimers was 8th. Logan Anderson sounds like he was the biggest mover that night.
Yeah, that's what somebody said, that he had passed. He come from somewhere back around 20th up to 10th or something like that. So
McGuire,
so good run for those guys. McGuire, DeYoung, yep.
Matt Avila, who is a regular at, I believe, Marshalltown in Boone. Yep. He's been running really good this year. But it's just, like I said, guys, we see on a regular basis.
It's a who's who. You take that whole field there, and they're the best at their local track. So what happened in the stock car side of things if we switch over to that one? I think some people may have heard of the guy that actually ended up winning this.
Yeah, I'm sure of it.
Maybe he's won a few other races.
It was kind of a big deal. I got to reading some of that, and some guys were a little frustrated with the way that went down, but I mean, this guy races for a living. You can't blame him.
Yeah, and depending who you talk to and what you want to believe, Ricky Thornton Jr. is one of, if not the top dirt late model racer in the country. And he did. He slid into Jordan Grabowski prepared car and won the feature up there. From the sounds of it, Dallin Murdy,
the game changer.
Yeah, so he wins about everything else that he starts. He was a strong second, followed by legendary Kelly Shyrock, and then we had Mike Albertson, and then again Oscalosa's own Caden Carter rounding out the top five. So Braden and Caden both with fifth place finishes there, and then as you kind of sneak down, you've got the car. Jordan Grabowski was eighth. Did we have any other local guys that made that trip that ended up in the feature there for us?
Braden Richards. He's somewhat local. He's more up around Boone. Other than that, I don't think so.
Yeah. So again, unbelievably strong fields there, and that was quite quite an undertaking up there with all the weather and everything else. For them to even to get that race in was pretty amazing. Then we kind of had the greatest weekend in racing, as people like to call it, the Sunday before Memorial Day. For most people, starts out early in the morning with the Grand Prix of Monaco for the Formula One group. Unfortunately for me as a kid, that race used to be so neat, and the street circuit and all the things Monaco, and in today's world with all the technology and speed and downforce and grip and everything in there, it was literally an 80-some lap parade, because I think they finished in exactly the order that they started in, and it was underwhelming to say the least, but I think that's fairly common in the Formula One side of it. Sometimes Formula One gets into some strategy stuff with different tires and that sort of stuff, and I don't think this one even had any of that from what I saw. So then if you're watching on TV at home, the TV switched over to the Indy 500 coverage, and us dirt track type people and sprint car and late model type folks were probably cheering on Kyle Larson.
All eyes on Larson.
And I didn't get a chance to watch much of it because of the rain delay and we had stuff going on. But it sounded like early in the race he ran up front quite a little bit, and then late kind of got hurt on a sped coming into pit road.
Speeding penalty kind of hurt him.
50-ish laps to go, and then that dropped him back to 20th. And then when the leaders pitted, then he was able to stay out and led some laps late, but ultimately had to come to pit road and ended up somewhere in that 18th place finish. And because the Indy 500 was rain delayed, then that prevented him from getting to Charlotte in time to start the Coca-Cola 600. And
Justin Allgaier.
Yep, Justin Allgaier ran his car with no practice, and by the time Kyle got there, they were under red flag for rain at like whatever lap 250 or whatever, and unfortunately that's where that one ended with Christopher Bell out front, I think, and he won that one. So that was a little anticlimactic as well. Now, I will say I watched about the last 15 laps of the Indy 500, and that was pretty amazing show of driving, and you just don't. I don't think any of us can really grasp racing at 220 or 230 miles an hour and what that takes, and you know, it was pretty amazing. But local connection, so we talked about Ryan Humphrey later with the Fairboard and preparing the track. His younger brother Jeff, who was in my brother's class in school, was actually part of the Team Penske Indy 500 effort. So with their winning car, he got to be in victory lane and all that stuff. So
I think Penske pretty well dominated that.
Yeah,
they sat on the front row 3 wide.
Yeah, it's Penske doesn't. I think somebody said that was their 20th, Team Penske's 20th Indy 500 victory all time,
which is
so
impressive.
Yeah, you look at there's been 105 or 108 of those, and they've won 20 of them. Yeah. That's pretty wild. So that's that pretty much brings us through most of the results here. We had some other national touring series. We had the High Limit Sprint Car Series. Danny Dietrich won $75,000 at Port Royal at the Weikert Memorial. We had Ricky Thornton, fresh off his stock car victory, won the first 2 nights of the Show Me 100 down in Lucas Oil Speedway in Missouri, and then Jonathan Davenport spanked him pretty good Saturday night. He had that deal pretty well wired, but I think I know World of Outlaws were racing out east somewhere, but I didn't hear their results quite as much. So yeah, just a full weekend. Unfortunately, there was going to be some really big drag race stuff this past weekend at Eddyville, but it got canceled due to the wet grounds and that sort of stuff. So I know Gerald and all those guys are gearing up for their July 4th big show that they're going to have down there here coming up in 4 or 5 weeks, and trying to get all that stuff prepared there. So with that, I think let's do our second break. We'll send it back to Steve, let him do one of the many things he's amazing, and then we'll come back and we'll get some history and background on you, and then kind of what you're doing currently and what your future plans are, and then maybe talk about these 2 other yahoos you brought with you. So with that, we'll send it to Steve and let him do his thing.
All right, Curtis. Well, Curtis, I do want to say that you are much more friendly to me than Safe ever is, so we might have to have you as host as every week. So we do thank all of our sponsors for making our broadcast possible for the Tuesday night tune-up. That includes James Family Greenhouse in Sigourney, also Christy Tarr, your American Family Insurance agent. We also thank Sigourney Tree Care, as well as Sigourney Motors. We'll stay in Sigourney with Sigourney Body Shop, as well as Sinclair Napa, and then Milo's Tree Service with Chris Minter, who you can contact for free estimates. All these sponsors making our broadcast possible each week. Again, we are live from Smoky Row here in downtown Oskaloosa on a beautiful Tuesday night. Let's go back to Curtis. Curtis, take it away.
Boy, you're right, Steve. Beautiful is an understatement. It is absolutely gorgeous out there. I got to spend most of the day outside at work and just could not believe how beautiful it is. So thankfully this year we didn't skip spring.
I'll tell you what, it could stay like this the rest of the racing season, and
I am with you.
I think we'd all be just fine.
Yeah, if we could have this 75 to 78 and mostly sunny, I would sure take it. So we've kind of been through the results nationally, locally, done all that stuff. The only other thing that I want to add before I forget is remember tomorrow is the nickel toss out at the Southern Iowa Speedway.
Yeah, right?
So they've got and correct me if I'm wrong, but nickels and candy and that sort of stuff for the kids.
Yep.
And
I believe I imagine they're doing car rides again this year. I think they usually do. I'm not sure.
That's typically a portion of it. I guess I didn't read that necessarily, but I'm not the best at reading either sometimes. So
give us a picture.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So with that being said, though, that's always a really well attended night, and the weather looks great again. So I think it's going to be an awesome night to get everybody out to the Speedway and take advantage of a beautiful evening to enjoy some racing action. So let's dig into your race career. I didn't invite you on the show just to be the co-host, although I do appreciate you jumping in and helping out with that because it would be boring for everybody at home to just listen to me. So tell us a little bit about how your racing history. Let's go all the way back to how did you get started? Because if I'm not mistaken, your father may have driven some race cars over the years, and that may be a bit of an understatement for those that don't know. Just kind of walk us through how that kind of went, and then kind of how you got started in it, and then we'll kind of bring it up to current time.
Honestly, I've been around it since I can remember. I couldn't tell you when it started. Like you said, my dad's been driving since I could remember. It used to be getting out of school, before the summer hit, getting out of school and going to the racetrack.
Yep.
That's just kind of what I grew up with. I mean,
yeah, I think so. You and I are very similar, right? I mean, that's just what happened. And while your dad raced, my dad was he did some driving in the drag racing stuff and some go-karting, but most of the time he was the crew chief car owner for his brother that was a wildly successful late model sportsman driver. But I think that we're so fortunate because tell me your thoughts on this, but to me it seems like, and I'm trying to do the same thing with Cole, my son now, who's very interested in it, but I think you just learn so much by being involved in it.
You pick up a lot.
And you don't even necessarily know that you're learning that.
Yep.
You just know that that's what happens.
Yep,
or
that's
how
the
that
way
goes.
it's supposed to be.
Yeah, right.
Like I said, I couldn't tell you what I picked up from him. I'm sure I've got a lot of good habits and maybe a lot of bad habits. I mean, it's hard telling, but
I think that's any father-son relationship.
I think so.
So I know definitely for me, it is.
He was always the old school way. When I got into it, a lot of new stuff came up. So there's a little bit of a transition there for me, learning his way to the new way.
And when you say new stuff, you're talking like technology,
driving styles. I don't think a lot of people realize it. Driving styles have changed. A lot of that comes with technology we have now. Different shocks, springs and stuff we're running.
Yep.
It used to be you throw that car in there and just let it eat. Yeah. Now it's more about keeping that car straight, keeping momentum up.
Yep. Maintaining that speed.
Yep, absolutely.
Because as I've seen it, as the traction and the suspension and all that stuff has become more sophisticated over the years, and even somebody could say, well, a stock car's really not any different, or hobby stock's not that much different than it was 10 years ago or 20 or 25 years ago. That may be true, but they sure are faster than
absolutely.
They were over those time periods. And I think you're exactly right. I think you hit the nail on the head. That causes you to be something slightly different setup wise, but then also be definitely different behind the wheel as well. So speaking of behind the wheel, when did you first drive yourself? When did you transition from dad's helper to, all right, I'm gonna race myself?
Man, 2009, I believe I first started. We didn't race a whole lot. I think I hit Bloomfield a couple times.
And this was in the hobby stock?
Yeah,
in the
hobby stock.
Okay.
We started out in the hobby stock. I ran some of the the normal tracks my first year, and we didn't quite have the funding we needed. Ended up cutting my teeth on a small track down in Osceola.
Oh, sure.
Clark County Speedway.
Yeah, down there, the Nelson
brothers.
family. Yeah.
Won several track championships and a lot of features down there. Honestly, that's where I learned how to drive. Little quarter-mile clay track.
They had a pretty good show going down there for several years. They kind of had some interesting classes with the mini sprint side of things, and then they kind of had quite a little bit with the 4 cylinders and stuff like that. And then over the years, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, they added the hobby stocks, and then they kind of added maybe the sport. Did they have sport mods back then too?
They ended up adding sport mods in there.
Yep, and now one of the Nelson boys runs a modified and the other runs a sport mod.
Yep.
So, and they don't run that track anymore, but I think it just got to be, so much work that they...
I think between them racing and trying to maintain the track, it was a lot.
Yeah, no doubt. So after your success there, what did the next few years look like to kind of bring us up to, let's say, the last 5 years or so?
We were in a little bit of a hiatus for, don't know, what was it, from 14 to 2001 maybe.
To 21.
21.
Yep, and then that's when you got back into the hobby stock pretty aggressively, if I remember correctly.
And it kind of happened overnight. A good buddy of mine, Peyton Stevens, said, "Hey, let's go to the races." Brad was racing, of course, and
dang friends,
I told him, I said, "This isn't a good idea." But I ended up going. Within 2 weeks, we were going after a car. And it happened very fast.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, it was a learning curve. Things had changed so much that if it weren't for my race family, I'd probably still be struggling in a hobby stock. But we picked up on it fairly quick, and we didn't have a lot of success our first year. We had a few good runs, but the next year we didn't win any races. We ran second a lot.
Yeah, you were there in second, third, fourth, fifth. Seemed like every single week. And I know me, I didn't know you super well at that time, but I certainly knew of you. And I just was like waiting, like all right, he's there every single week, you know. And that old adage in racing goes, you know, you hang around the top 5, sooner or later you're going to
get there.
You know.
Fall challenge rolled around the first night. I think we got dumped and had to go to the back, but we ran up to 8th. Came from the back. The second night, we were fixing to have a really good night. I think I started 8th, somewhere around there, and I was running down John Watson for second and trying to get around him, and I had a mini spool that
decided
took a crap
stop.
on me. Yeah.
Stop mini spooling.
I thought I had a transmission going bad, but we didn't find it until later that winter. I finally tore it apart and found it. But
here we go.
Yeah.
So then that was the 22 season.
Yep.
So then that brings us into last year, and you started last year in the hobby stock, and then just absolutely had a run of some of the worst luck that I've seen, and kind of getting involved in some skirmishes that weren't necessarily of your doing, and wrong place, wrong time type of thing.
The year started out really well. We went down to CJ. We actually went down there for practice. I had changed a lot, different shock package, some different springs, and the car felt really good for their practice night. And I went out a couple times. I was like, this is good. We came back, I think it was the following week, maybe. Came out for our heat race and about got taken out. We managed to make the redraw. I think I was the last one to draw, and the only thing left was 2. And
pretty good starting spot, though.
And it just so happened the top side was fast that night, and we parked it that night.
Yeah, that's awesome.
From there,
and then the crud hit the fan, if you will, right?
We had, I think, maybe one decent night at Oski. And then we got kind of tied up in something that wasn't wrong place, wrong time, basically.
Which can happen, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's not that anybody necessarily sets out for that to happen, but you know, a couple guys get to racing hard, or somebody makes a mistake here or there, and all of a sudden, especially as tight as the hobby stock class is, it can turn into a melee in very fast order, and that's what it seemed like happened to you. But it didn't just happen once, did it? It was
twice.
Yeah.
So the first one set us back probably 3 weeks. Had to go get the car, take Sharky, get it straightened. Honestly, I didn't think we were going to make it back. It was pretty bad. We got it straightened, got it back to where it needed to be, and I think we got it back together on a Saturday morning. I think I got done at about 11 o'clock, and a buddy of mine, Darren DeSwartz, said, well, we going to Eldon? Yeah, I think we will.
Yeah, here we go.
We loaded up, had no expectations, just wanted to shake the car down. Ended up drawing the pole that night, and we parked it again. So
what you're telling me is you had awesome luck, horrible luck, awesome luck, and then
Horrible
back to the
luck,
horrible
yep.
luck again.
That following week, we went back to Oski and again got tied up in something we shouldn't have, and that's
Dang
about-
it again.
That wasn't where it ended. I think we went to CJ one more night, and after that, I decided it was time to move on.
Yep. And what did you decide to move on to in the racing world?
We're now in a sport mod.
So you are officially crazy,
Yeah.
and decided to go from the hobby stock to the sport mod. So I think that's a good spot to kind of step off the throttle pedal, if you will. Maybe let Steve do his thing here again, and then we can pick that up with how the second half of last year went, and then kind of into this year and what your future plans are, and then maybe talk about all the folks that help you out, and let him run through our sponsors and supporters.
All righty. Thank you, Curtis. And once again, we do thank all of our sponsors for making our Tuesday night tune-up possible. We're live from Smoky Row. We thank Milo's Tree Service for being one of our sponsors from the very beginning, as well as Sinclair Napa. We thank Sigourney Body Shop. We also thank Sigourney Motors, as well as Sigourney Tree Care, Christy Tarr at American Family Insurance, and also James Family Greenhouse in Sigourney. All great sponsors of Steve Shetler Media, and they make our Tuesday night tune-up possible every Tuesday night from Smoky Row here in Oskaloosa. Let's go back to Curtis for more Tuesday night tune-up. Curtis.
All right, thanks a lot, Steve. Welcome everybody back here to Smoky Row, and chatting with Trevor Tanner. And Trevor kind of walked us so far through his history of his racing career, which again started back in about 2009, pretty hot and heavy in the 21 season into the 22 season, and then started out last year still in the hobby stock, and to maybe stop with the hobby stock and move to the sport mod. Walk our listeners and viewers through that, just some of the immediate differences between the two cars, right? Because although the drive lines are very much the same, between the two cars, and that's intentionally done by IMCA, right? So it's you could basically take your existing driveline out of your hobby stock. Now that's not what you did. You sold your car complete to someone, and then purchased another complete car. But even though the drivelines are the same, so the power is the same, or roughly the same. There's a few small differences in there, I guess, between the exhaust and the carburation. But walk us through what the differences are from a driving standpoint between the hobby stock and the sport mod.
Honestly, the hobby stocks, I feel like there's a little more finesse to them. The sport mod kind of fits my driving style a little bit better. Seems like the harder you drive them, the better they handle. And up until, a couple weeks ago, I haven't felt that. We've been struggling since I've got this car. We finally found an issue with it, got it fixed, and it's been a lot better.
Once you found the issue, it was like, looking at it from the outside, it was like somebody flipped a switch.
Absolutely.
And it went from, why is none of this making sense, and why is this not doing what I want it to do or what it should do, to this is what it's supposed to be like. And it looked amazing when you found that issue, and through talking with you through those issues, trying to figure it out, it's like when you get to the point where you're trying these changes and nothing is reacting the way that it's it's like, okay, we've got to dig deeper. There's a bigger issue somewhere here. And kudos to you and your family for finding that and figuring that out.
I'll tell you what, the only reason I found it, I was getting ready to cut that thing into pieces. I've told people this, I kid you not, I had the plasma cutter out. I was ready to go to town on it.
Oh boy. Well, I'm going to call you crazy, but You know, at the same time, I think that speaks volumes to you to have that fortitude to continue to keep your head down and drive forward. So now you found the issue with the car, you fixed the issue with the car, you have everything the way that it needs to be, or at least really close.
We're getting close.
And now you go to the track and you run amazing. And maybe a little bit of your inexperience caught up with you that night, but now you're ready to take that knowledge and info and move forward.
The past couple of weeks, where I finished, really hasn't shown it. That first night, the car actually responded to what I was doing. We led 9 or 10 laps of a 16-lap feature.
And looked darn good doing it, in my opinion.
I wasn't quite used to the car. You know, I hate to bring up the Ricky Bobby thing, but I didn't know what to do with my hands.
That's awesome.
We kind of let one slip away from us that night.
Well, here's the thing, though. I think no different than most things in life, right? When do we learn the most? We learn the most when we screw something up.
And I came into this with no expectations, but we're racers. I mean, we've got expectations.
Sure.
The following week, again, the car was still responding. I think we were a little tight in heat race. Car wasn't quite right. We made an adjustment for the main. I think we started 9th. We were, I think, up to 5th and charging pretty good. And I think somebody got into me in the back or something. I thought I had a flat, and it was just the bracing rubbing on the tire. So.
Well, again, though, that's not something that typically happens in a hobby stock that you're used to running, right? You know, the panels aren't plastic or aluminum; they're steel, so they tend to not be as flexible and move around, and that's just part of the learning process. You know, I know you and I've had a lot of conversations about trust in the process and making laps, and making laps is the most important thing that anybody that's new to that can do. So that's really good. So you're here we are today. You're ready to continue on a very exciting upward trajectory. What do you think your plans are at this point for the rest of the season?
Again, I want to say I don't have any expectations. This year's more about learning the car, setting it up, learn how to drive the car.
And making those adjustments to the different track conditions.
Absolutely. You know, we talked the other night, the adjustment I made, and going back, I was thinking that probably wasn't the right adjustment. It may not have been wrong, but there was a better adjustment I could have made.
Yep. And let's face it, that's a big difference between a hobby stock where you're relatively limited on what adjustments you can typically make.
You got
right?
springs and shocks, and that's about all you can do.
Right. Maybe some wheel spacing,
some offsets.
You know. Whereas now the Sport Mod, you've got
bars
almost
upon bars.
Yeah, I mean it's
turns.
not as unlimited as a late model or a modified would be, but you've got significantly more things that you can do to it, and that's a lot to grasp onto, and sometimes it's kind of like that, you know, journey of a 1,000 miles starts with one step, or how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time,
right.
And that's what I'm so proud of you about, and the way that you're working through that. So that being said, though, I mean, are you still looking to run a couple times a week through the rest of the year? And is there for me looking on the outside in, I can definitely confidently say, maybe not definitely say, but confidently say that I expect you to knock at least one off this year and end up in victory lane at some point.
I don't want to say I'm ready for that. I mean, I feel like we're getting close.
I think with the experience and as you continue to learn,
we'll get there.
Yeah, I think you will.
My biggest thing this year is, I mean, look at the guys we run against on a nightly basis.
At any of the tracks we go to.
I just want to be a thorn in their side. I mean, I hate to say that, but I want to be there.
I could definitely see, as this season plays out, some similarities to your 2022 season, where you didn't necessarily win, but you were right there every single week, and I think that's what you're building towards. So
that's where we want to be this year. If we if we pick up a win,
Great.
great.
Yeah.
If not, I've only been in the car for a year.
Yeah,
so
right. How many races now? Are you 12 races? Maybe
12 or 13
Yeah,
deep.
right.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting to see the improvements you've made. Now talking about that, so we've got your history, we've got your current state, we've got maybe the rest of this year kind of talked about. Let's talk about some of the people that help you out, because I know not only do you have a pretty amazing support system at home, but then you've also got a pretty large group of friends that also help
Absolutely. And, we started out, we were all kind of in the same class, and we've all kind of went our separate ways now, but we all still talk. I mean, you see us together at the track. Got John Irwin in a stock car now. Darren DeSwartz, he's still in the hobby stock. The Hemsleys still in the hobby stock. Aaron Martin has been a huge help to me, which hopefully we might see him in a stock car by the end of the year. We'll
That'd
see.
be exciting.
He's waiting to get that car to Johnny. So
That's awesome.
who else? The Stevens, Peyton and Brad Stevens, Jake Stitzma. Man, who else am I forgetting? My significant other and the crew chief now. Honestly, if it weren't for them, I probably would have hung it up.
Yeah. I know also, like at work, you and Jason Van Zomeren talk quite a bit.
Jason has been a huge help to me this year.
And he's a source of knowledge, but he's also very good at keeping you from beating up on yourself, because you're pretty good at beating up on yourself.
Yep, I'm definitely harder on myself than
that's
anybody
good.
else.
That's good. That's really good. So, and that's really what it takes, right? If you don't have that support system, whether it's at home, with your family, and you don't have the friends and the people at the track, there's a lot of days that's the best part of this whole racing thing.
Absolutely.
So no, that's awesome, man. And I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am, how proud I am of watching you, and you guys are great folks, and I'm honored to know you, and quite frankly, I see very, very high points coming in your future.
I hope so.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks again for not only being the co-host tonight, but also being the interviewee. With that, I think we'll sneak in another break here. Let Steve do the bill paying side of things, and then we'll kind of sneak back and wrap things up.
Hey, before we go any further, I think you should go up on camera real quick and give your dad a hug, because I know you're just itching to get a little camera time. There you go. There's one of his big supporters.
That's the crew chief.
That's the crew chief. We do thank all of our sponsors for making our broadcast possible tonight. That includes James Family Greenhouse in Sigourney, also Christy Tarr, your American Family Insurance agent. All the Sigourney businesses like Sigourney Tree Care, of course, Sigourney Motors, Sigourney Body Shop. We've got Sinclair Napa, and also Milo's Tree Service. All these sponsors making the Tuesday night tune-up TNT possible live from Smoky Row in Oskaloosa. And it looks like we have another co-host to end the show tonight, Curtis. What else we got for tonight?
Well, we've kind of talked about a lot of the stuff, and this is the point in the show where Safe likes to bring up the juice, as he calls it. And that's kind of, he's so well connected and so passionate, and he does so many things where he hears this tidbit of info or this little rumor or whatever. I've really only got two things, and I'm going to start with the national one that was super surprising to me. And then we're going to end with a little bit of a local one to kind of racing in the NASCAR Cup Series is going to be selling or whatever you want to say, their racing operation. Now, I'm not sure how that looks exactly. My idea is probably that maybe a couple of the teams will get absorbed into one organization, and maybe one or two will go into another organization or two. I'm not exactly sure how that looks out there, but with those NASCAR charters and all that stuff that brings with them. Then you focus on the equipment, right? The buildings, the trucks and trailers, the race cars, the shop equipment, and then last but absolutely not least, the other side that you think about is, what about all those people, right? That are employed there or that maybe work for an outside company that supplies things to them, or however that looks, right? And
now the question is he going to focus more on the drag racing side? Is he going to absorb some of those people into that? Maybe
you've got a good point. It'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. But I just thought that was amazingly large news. But if you look historically back, 15 or so years ago, Tony Stewart had quite a few sprint car teams in the outlaw side of things with the wings, and then without the wings in the midget sprint cars and Silver Crown. So he kept the wing sprint car deal, but kind of divested himself from the USAC side of things. So really not unheard of, and you're exactly right. Tony's married to Leah Pritchett that drives his Top Fuel car. Typically, Tony's driving it this year, but that's a pretty big time side of things.
I think the big thing is somebody like Tony Stewart surrounds himself with successful people. It's hard to think that those people are going to have jobs.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's natural to kind of worry about that sort of stuff, but I agree with you. Again, I see this being as probably one or two teams, and all the people and equipment and all that stuff end up going to somebody else's operation.
The way NASCAR is now, everything's a lot closer. You got some of these smaller teams that they might pick up a car or two. Are they going to want to bring, that support system with them?
Yeah. And, and the other side of it is, hey, what does this say about, the NASCAR team model? Is it still viable? Now Tony Stewart's partner in this, Gene Haas of Haas Automation, he's almost single-handedly funds a Formula One team. Yep. So I don't think that's a huge thing. I think that it's probably just more a time and focus thing for those people. And quite frankly, the team's accomplished a lot. They've not only won races and championships, but we're to the upper echelon or the crust of the NASCAR series for quite a few years. So be interesting to see how that all shakes out. So that's kind of on the national side. Now on the local side, an interesting thing that happened late last week was we kind of talked about Dustin the Dominator. I think that's kind of what I penned on him earlier tonight, and that may or may not stick, and I'm not claiming any rights to it or anything else, but boy, he has been dominant this year in the hobby stock and the stock car. I believe that there is a $400 plus another $100, so a $500 bonus.
That is $100 every.
It's every night. Okay, so it's going to be increasing.
Yep.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that I understand it is it starts out tomorrow night at $500 if someone can beat him. Now, obviously, there's certain parameters that go with that.
I think he has to finish the race.
Yeah, somebody can't just wreck him and then whoever wins, or whatever. But and then it goes up by $100 every week, and then if he could win the rest of them, then he gets that money at the end of the year. Is that what the math adds up? Okay. So yeah, so that'll be interesting to see how that affects the hobby stock class. You start talking about $500 is a lot to win in the hobby stock class no matter what. But that's on top of the regular purse. So now all of a sudden that's got the very big potential to.
He's probably going to have his hands full. Not only there's a few guys that run there regularly that are nipping at his heels.
There are a lot of guys that run there that are super
Eric
fast.
Stanton, Peyton Stevens is coming on strong this year.
Absolutely, he was in the top 3 last week, if I'm not mistaken. I think between the top 7 or 8 guys that run Oskaloosa weekly, plus you add in another couple in the area that maybe don't run Oski all the time,
you might get Nathan Ballard coming
yeah,
back.
I think you could even get to the point where we start to see quite a few cars from other tracks coming to maybe try and collect that don't normally come to Oski, you know, or whatever.
The longer this goes on, the more you're going to see cars come from farther away.
I think you're exactly right. I think, you know, the first week there's probably going to be a little bit of a bump in maybe a few cars come, and then the next week it's, you know, if Dustin's able to win again, then maybe it's more and more and more and more. So
I was seeing posts. The guy I bought my car from, Jeff Fink, there were people tagging him, and he's clear up in Denison. I'm like, man, that's...
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and quite frankly, if anybody's up to the challenge, the year that Dustin started off with, he's been nearly unstoppable.
Absolutely.
So if anybody's up to the challenge, he would be one at the top of the list.
If anybody's got a hobby stock laying around,
oh, here we go. Look, little ride looking, huh?
Yeah. I've got a drivetrain we could slap in.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we'll see how this all plays out, but I know that I'm excited for it, and Dustin is he's a go-getter, and he's had a great start to the year.
He has more laps around Oski than probably 95% of the people there.
Absolutely, he's been doing it a while,
smooth.
and he's got. You know, he's got good equipment, and he's got good crew, and he does a great job, and he's got good backers. All those things add up to what you see on the track results in both classes, because he's been really good in both classes. So it'll be exciting to see how that shakes out. I don't know how I feel about the whole bounty thing. I have a little bit of mixed feelings about it. On one hand, I think it's incredible.
Yep.
And it's gonna, and I don't think anybody has any type of bad intentions by putting up the bounty. I think that it's more to drive excitement and create a storyline and that sort of stuff, and hopefully bring in other cars.
But I want to see a good race.
But at the same time,
at
the same time, we know that there can be some negative things that come along with that, and we've seen those in previous bounty type situations sometimes over the years. So let's hope none of that happens, and let's hope that it's no matter what happens, it's a heck of a race, and the fans are entertained, and everybody tells somebody else about it, and they bring somebody with them next week, and that's really, let's face it, that's the way we grow the sport, right?
Yeah.
If everybody brought one extra person with them every week, then all of a sudden there'd be nowhere for everybody to sit.
It's definitely going to be a good thing for that track.
I think so. I think it'll be really neat. So with that said, the weather looks great. We invite everybody to come out tomorrow night and spend a beautiful evening at the track and take in some of the best racing action you're going to find anywhere in the state. So with that, I think we'll call it a night. Thanks everybody at home. Again, don't forget to share the show, and if you have questions or comments, don't hesitate to reach out to Steve on those, and we'll try and address those or make adjustments, make improvements as we go along. We're all kind of learning in this, and I know it's exciting getting to help out. And with Safe not here this week, it's a little nerve-wracking for me.
We did our best.
But yeah, I appreciate you being here. Thanks a lot. And yeah, it's great fun. And at the end of the day, let's face it, we all want our world of racing to grow and to reach more people. And you know, the best way to do that is things like Steve does here. So with that, we'll send it back to Steve and wish everybody a great evening.
Hey, Curtis, I just want to say that, just to correct you, if they have compliments for the show, they can message me. If there's any complaints, you can email Curtis at whatever.com.
Yes, that's right. Actually, I think Safe, since he's not here, he's the head of the complaint department. Yes. So we'll let him do that.
Safe, S-A-I-F. Yeah, Safe will be back next week. Curtis, you did a great job this week. And thank you guys for being on tonight. And we thank all of our sponsors once again for making the show possible. We'll be back here next Tuesday evening at 7, live at Smoky Row for the Tuesday night tune-up.
Yay.